World War III might be just around the corner, and even though I am the high-tech farmer, I wanted to learn how to grow one of the most vital carb sources the old way.
Don't get me wrong here, my grandma grows potatoes every year in our garden, but I never really paid attention to how she does it. So to make up for this, I've scoured the internet for potato growing tips and tutorials. I even fell sick doing this and needed a lot of sleep, but that didn't stop me from mashing it all up into one concise World War III proof potato growing manual. Let's get cracking. This is the future me, just wanted to let you know to stick around for some harvest.
So, if you have a small garden like me, or you live in a city with just a balcony, and if we take into account that in the Third World War you might wanna stay stealthy with your operation even in a big garden, growing in containers is the way to go.
According to the almighty internet potato gurus, containers such as this one offer more yield per square foot than planting into the ground. Now, I've got myself this nice and shiny 10-liter metal bucket to stay consistent with the World War III theme, but then I found out that these 30-liter guys with holes in the bottom are a much better choice for maximizing yield. With that sorted out, what are we gonna be planting? Well, you can use cheap grocery store potatoes, or you can buy expensive seed potatoes. I will just go with the grocery store ones. And here is a trick if you wanna plant them in time. Get some paper towels, soak them in water, get some healthy potatoes without cuts and bruises, and wrap them in the wet towels. Put all of this into a perforated bag, add a full onion, and put it on a windowsill. This is really the way to make them sprout fast, I'm not kidding. Once you've done that, they should be sprouting in about 3 weeks. Technically, if your seed potato has multiple chits, you can cut it up into big pieces, 1 chit a piece, and each piece will act as a complete seed potato. If the potato is more than 2 ounces though, leave it whole. The rule of thumb is that each potato should maximally have 2 chits, so if yours has more, remove them, even the little ones. Removing the additional chits makes sure that you will grow big tubers. If you don't remove the chits, you might grow more potatoes, but they will be a lot smaller, because each chit will grow into a separate plant and that will take up space. After you cut the potatoes up, don't immediately go to planting. Let them sit with the wound facing up for about a week so they can cure and be more resistant to pathogens. And when working with the potatoes, I found a disclaimer from the manufacturer on the back side. The potatoes might stop working when you boil them, so be sure to use fresh ones. And now you better hold on to something, because I found out that there are 2 major armies, if you will, of potatoes. The first are called determinate and the second indeterminate. The main difference is that the determinate varieties mature fairly quickly, in about 70 to 90 days, and they grow in only one layer, so they don't need healing, which is a technique that we'll talk about later. Indeterminate varieties grow upwards, develop multiple layers, and require healing for optimal performance. So determinate equals less potatoes in a shorter time, and indeterminate equals more potatoes per plant, but they take longer to grow. If you choose to grow determinate ones in the 30-liter buckets, you should plant 4 seed potatoes a few inches in the ground and spread them out evenly so they have space. If you choose to grow indeterminate potatoes, you should only plant 2 seeds in the lower half of the bucket. And you always wanna plant the potatoes with the chits facing up. Water well after planting and check on the soil every 2 to 3 days. It should be moist but not soggy. However, if you live in a mild climate, there is a high chance that the potatoes will now grow without your input. That is, if you've done the preparations right. Next on the list, fertilizer and soil. For example, I have my special World War III proof soil mix, so I'm set. But in general, you wanna add compost for better water and nutrient retention. Plus, at the beginning, you want your fertilizer to have nitrogen, because it encourages leafy growth. When about 1 month passes, there is a hard decision to make. My personal favorite part of the potato plant are the potatoes themselves, so I like to focus on the tuber growth. You do this by switching to a fertilizer that's low in nitrogen and high in potassium. So something like 168 or 468 should work just fine. There is a lot of contradictory information on the internet concerning ideal potato soil pH, but the sweet spot should be between 5.5 and 6.5 pH, so potatoes like a slightly acidic soil. Now, how to protect the plants? One of the biggest menaces to potato leaves can be earwigs and snails. So if you are having problems with those, I would suggest mixing up a bit of iron phosphate into the soil. Healing. This means adding soil to the plants because indeterminate potatoes grow vertically and this can increase yield. And it keeps the potatoes from getting sunburned, which would make them turn green and potentially release some toxic stuff. I personally like my tubers edible, but each to their own. Also, if you live in a windy area, simplify gardening recommends using suspended cattle fencing about 18 inches from the top of the bucket, which will then support the canopy in wind and will keep your garden passable. Put the bottom of the containers in the ground to keep the root area cooler and spread wood chips to retain more water. You can also mulch the top to combat evaporation. Put your buckets into an area with about 8 to 10 hours of sunlight. That should deliver optimal results. As already said, the plants should be maturing in about 80 to 100 days from planting. Mine already looks pretty decent. Apparently, we should consider harvesting when more than 50% of the leaves have turned yellow, since if the leaves are still green, the potatoes are packing on weight. But some sources recommend to wait till the leaves start to completely die off, then let them sit for one more week and then proceed to harvest. Well, these leaves look kind of sad, so I might as well harvest it.
Well, by the looks of it, I think I've made a mistake because I've planted the thorn potato. But look at this, wow! So many potatoes from one plant. I must have a green thumb or something.
After harvesting, gently brush off the dirt and let them dry in a cool, dry area. And after that's done, you can store them in cloth bags, preferably in the dark. Avoid storing your tubers in plastic bags, as they will sweat and rot. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and see you next time.